Hey guys, Weekend Modder here, and today I am going to perform RGH modification on this Corona 4GB NAND console. I'm going to do so using the tool, which is available for sale on my website, store.weekendmodder.com, and an Ace V3. This runs about $10, runs about $5 plus shipping. All in, you're under about $20 total cost. Some of the additional parts that I'm going to be using are just a basic set of tweezers, some flux paste, fiberglass scratch, and then some various SD card reader writers. And I do strongly suggest that you have multiple. What's up, BO3 Gaming Williams and Ryan Mackey? Appreciate you joining me. So again, we're going to do the RGH modification on a 4GB Corona using Ace V3 and SD tool. As well as some miscellaneous, which you could reproduce this for a total cost of just under $20, assuming you have soldering supplies and USB SD tool readers. So we'll get started here in just a sec. Alright, so to jump right into it, we've identified this particular console as a Corona 4GB based on the NAND configuration here. There are some reference images on my website, weekendmodder.com, so you can feel free to pop over there and browse some of the images to help you identify your console type. Hey guys, thanks for joining me in chat. We're getting started on modifying this 4GB Corona console using an Ace V3 and the SD tool. So the first thing that I like to do here is kind of tuck these wires out of the way, and they're annoying me by not really staying. Is I'll take my fiberglass scratch pen and open up these points on top. We're just removing a top layer of coating that makes it more difficult for the solder to stick. Because we still need access to these points for wiring up the glitch chip. And then if these points were dulled over, I would hit them as well. In this particular console, they're quite shiny already and have a little bit of solder residue on them, so there's really no need for that. We'll go ahead and hit up some flux paste across the header up top, as well as the set of headers for the 4GB tool, and then right here on the left side of this crystal where we tie to as well. You desoldered the pad on R4D4. It is fixable, but Liam Ray, that's not really something that I'm going to address on this console or this stream. Take some really detailed close-up photos and shoot them over to me at weekendmodder@gmail.com, and I could give you an idea whether or not I thought I could fix it for you in a quote. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pull up the images for the Cool Runner Slim wires install here, just to give you guys an idea on a reference image what I'm shooting at here. Yeah. Lower left. So this is the header that we're working on right now, and the points that are labeled are E and F as if we were going to read from a 16 megabyte NAND console. So we're not going to use either of those. We also don't want 3V 3 because the Ace runs on 5V. So fortunately enough for us, this point here is actually 5V, the one on the end, and this point is ground. So really, that's what we're going to use. And I misspoke here. E and F are not as if we're going to do 16 meg NAND. These are needed points. It's 6 and 7, which are normally labeled blue and green for NANDX points that are these two that we're not going to use. So the ones that we will go ahead and take care of are 5V here and ground here as well as E and F. This particular console, Source Mods, I think, is Nasir is the first name. So this will, yeah, this is your console. I'm losing concentration when I try to read and keep up with the chat. What's up, Mod Shop? Thanks for joining, man. I appreciate you. Source Mods, I answered yours. Yeah, so we're going to keep going here. The main point of this live stream being to actually accomplish a mod. So we're going to hold some temperature there on the 5-volt point. Just taking its sweet time. There we go. We can get next to the ground point. Oh, you know what? I'm not showing you guys what I'm doing, am I? Bummer. There we go. Focus. Come on, camera. Focus. Hazard FFA. I don't take the KVs out of pre-modded consoles. Your KV is required. Mod Shop's absolutely right. You'll have your original unbanned KV. It does get automatically unpacked in the extract folder on your backup disk if you want to take it out for some reason. But my understanding is that it's easier for KVs to be stolen when they're not kind of baked into the NAND. So my recommendation is to use the console as is without adding any KV until the first time you get banned, and then from then on use the spoof service that would be offered by whatever stealth you're using. Alright, so I'll go ahead and get all these points going on here. Alright, so we've got 5-volt ground, E and F soldered up here. Next steps are going to be to do the 4 gig NAND read write. The 4 gig NAND read write, you're going to be able to find the diagram over at store.weekendmodder.com, right on my Xbox Tools page, and then we go down here to the SD tool, and then on the SD tool page itself is the reference image that I'm using here. So these pin numbers and pad numbers are related to the numbers that are on the SD tool itself. So if you look across the bottom of the SD tool, there's little numbers here. Man, that's a crappy image, isn't it? You can see these little numbers here. So we're just matching up those numbers to their corresponding spot. Pretty easy like. All right. So first thing I like to do is just go through and remelt the solder onto each pad that I know I'm going to be doing, kind of pre-tinning them. They've got a little bit of solder already on there, so that makes it a little bit easier. I'm also skipping some of the pads that I know are unused, which you can tell from the reference image. So we get a little bit of extra solder there. All right. Cool, Salvo P. You must be one of the. I'm gonna take a. I don't know if it's racist to guess based on your name, but you must be the dude in Italy that bought the SD tool. So we'll go ahead and say thank you very much. I'm glad you like the tool, and thank Mod Shop as well, because he's the guy who designed and sold me the big batch of them so that I could be the reseller on them. So very cool. All right, so next steps are going to be to actually install the chip. I'm going to start with the kind of bottom, the row that's facing the left side, which the top one is pad number 2. And then we'll keep going from there, and then we'll do the second row as well, so that the tool ends up positioned off this way and easy to make use of. So I'll just kind of separate the particular connection that I'm trying to make. Alright, the next one is actually ground. So on the chip it's labeled G. So I'm going to separate that line. Next one is 14 actually. So I'm going to separate that line. We're going to go 16. Alright, so now we've got that row finished. We can move on to the next row so we're not blocking access to the first one. What is going on? People are yelling at each other. Got an SD tool. What's up, James from Golden? Awesome, man. Glad you're still enjoying that console. Alright, before I lose track here, we're going point number 1 is actually the next one in order. It's the first one on this top row. So we're going point 1 here. Alright, now we have 3. So separate 3 and get that one in there as well. We have 11, and then 13 will be our final connection. So 11 is the next one in line here, and then the last one here is 13. And then finally, we also need to take our crystal side, or the one that is labeled C, and anchor that to this side of this crystal. And then what this little guy is just a quick disconnect. You could use a set of jumper wire pins to add this sort of functionality to yourself. But you don't have to. You could just solder it direct and desolder it as necessary when we mod the console. So now we've got our SD tool installed. Personally, when I do these installs, I usually go for the full-blown and install the chip right off the bat too. But for anybody who might be following this kind of as a first-timer, best advice at this stage is to actually get good NAND dumps or good NAND backups first before you proceed any further here. So we're going to grab power. I'm going to grab a sticky note here. And the reason I do that is just to offer a little bit of protection so that this doesn't ground out. These pads don't hit the console and like short. We're going to go make sure that the line to the crystal is connected so that we're in read mode. We're going to go ahead and apply the standby power. I'm going to grab my USB extension here. I'm going to get my handy dandy SD card reader. And then again, standby power is applied. So I have the power connected. The console's obviously not on. And we'll go ahead and plug in the SD tool into the SD card reader right here. Light just like that. So in the lower left in JRunner, we did get this pop-up this particular time. You don't always get the pop-up of you need to format it here. What you'll want to do is hit read NAND. At the input name pop-up here, you can just say OK. You want to tell it that it's a Corona 4 gig. Which should give you a list of drives. You should see one with a size listed here. I've seen this number vary a little bit console to console, but mostly it should be somewhere around 4,000 megabytes being a 4 gig console. So we'll say read, and hopefully, if we don't have any, okay, so this time we got some errors here. It can sometimes be soldering that needs touched up. Occasionally, sometimes just changing the reader out will fix this as well. So what I'm going to do is actually close JRunner altogether. I'm going to pop back out, disconnect the SD, take this SD reader, set it to the side. I'm going to grab a second SD reader that I keep around, plug, relaunch JRunner, and give it another shot here. Okay, Mod Shop, start going heavy on timeouts, bro. If you are feeling like moderating or whatever, people keep being stupid in the comments. Just time them all out. I think you have that. You know what? You don't have to do that. I will do it. You're in timeout. You're in timeout. There we go. How about that? Now you guys can all take a literal chill pill. All right. So we've got a new SD card reader writer here. Our standby power is not connected. I'm going to go ahead and reconnect standby power. I'm going to plug into the different SD card reader writer. And then I'm going to pop back over into JRunner here. And we'll do the same process. Read NAND. OK. We'll say 4 gig. Let's see what we get this time. So we've got a size. Let's read and see if it works better with this reader writer. See, look at that. No change in soldering, no change in anything else, just swap out the reader. And the weird thing is, last time the first reader that I used worked just fine, no problems. So sometimes you just gotta, give it another shot. It's not a huge deal, right? It's a little bit of a finicky process. All right, so now since we're doing an ACE v3, we're not doing CR4 speedup. We're using the default timing. I'm going to go ahead and say create ECC. I'm going to write ECC, select it, and I'm going to hit write here as well. I get my warning, which I say yes to, and then I see writing and done. So we've written our ECC file to the console, which is good. That's the next step we want to do. So now we can go ahead and disconnect power, disconnect the reader. Out of the way for now, and then we're going to disconnect the crystal line so that once we have the glitch chip installed, we can boot and get Zell because of the ECC file we have written. All right, so we're going to go ahead and install the ACE v3 chip. The cool thing about the ACE v3 is it comes preloaded with a timing file for the Corona consoles that works really nice. So all I'm doing so far is just taking the chip out of the bag, taking the little adhesive pad, sticking it on the back, peeling back the adhesive areas, and then chip positioning on this style of console. I like to go right about here, so I'm off to the left of the NAND header, but above the 4 gig tool sort of area, and that's about where I like to leave them. Did I come across any 150 megahertz SMD crystals? I actually went back to my supplier and had them procure them for me. I searched the crap out of Mauser and DigiKey and everything else and could not find either 5 volt or 3 volt 3 150 megahertz crystals, but I have 50 of them on the way from my supplier. Now I'm a little cautious on that one, or cautiously optimistic, because this is the same supplier that sold me the chips with the bogus crystals on them, but I didn't see that I had a whole lot of options. I'd also like to approach that supplier about trying to find me some 200 megahertz chips that I could use with the Matrix and try some of the Muffin 200 megahertz timing files. So I don't know. I'm not put a lot of effort into it yet, but we'll see when these crystals show up. If they're good, then I was thinking about offering them for sale on my website for people who have, picked up bad aces, and then I'll just use all the ACE v3s that I have with the weird crystals in Coronas because they seem to be unaffected. The Corona stock boot timing seems to work just fine. Alright, so what I just did kind of off camera, opened up the wire pack here, and I'm going to trim off some of the excess wire length that's on the end of these wires. I've kind of covered this a bunch of times in previous videos, but basically you just don't want a ton of exposed wire at the end. So I'm just shortening it so that past the installation there is a very minor amount of exposed metal here instead of the like 1/4 of an inch of it that they leave on from the factory. Awesome, King of the Hill. I'm glad that SD tool worked out. There's the man, the myth, and the legend, Mod Shop, right there, who is actually the guy who designed and created that tool. So thank you, Mod Shop, again. All right, so get back to the nitty-gritty here. The first point that we're going to install will be this one here, which is actually our 5-volt. We're going to pop that down to the pad labeled 5V. Next one that we'll install will be our ground point, which is this top one here. And pop that over to GND. There we go. Next point we'll do will actually be point E. And this is the point where I should point out that if you're doing a console that's a later version, what you want to look at right here are R2C7 and R2C6, these little resistors right here. Mine are present, which means first of all that I don't need to bridge them, and second of all it tells me that I'm very unlikely to require a postfix adapter. Yes, I will be changing the ring of light on this console. Are you asking me, my personal console, would it happen to be a Trinity? Yeah, this is Source Mod's console. Yes. I don't know what's being asked here right now, so I'll just do shut up and work. So that was point E here. And then we're going to take the last point, which is point F. We'll get that over to F. There we go. And we'll clean up the flux residue and stuff here in a little while. Now I like to rotate the console here as I prepare for doing the C and point, both of which are going to route to the underside of the console. Mod-Shop, you know, to be honest, I don't feel like I have a personal system. Every time I make like a badass console that I just really like, whatever, I end up throwing it up on the website for like a ridiculous price, like $450 or something. And I really price it with the goal of, please nobody buy this, right? Like I'm going to make it super expensive so that, because I don't want anybody to buy it. And then they sell, and then I'm left without a console for a few months, and then I make another one and whatever. So to be honest, I don't really maintain a personal console most of the time. So there's the truth. All right, so we're going to go down here to C, and I'm soldering the side of the wire that I didn't trim to the pads on the chip. So the other side of the wire has the reduced exposed amount of on the end here, the little short bits. No, I'm not willing to do any case cutouts. Sorry. Just that sort of thing. All right, so D point, I go through the south bridge hole here and pull through. And C, I go over to the next one, route through the hole and pull through. And then we'll need to flip the board to finish up here. So this is the C wire that came out. We're going to come over here to the post point. And the post point, the way that I remember it is over one, up one, over one. So it's this kind of second level on the outside little point guy there. We'll go ahead and what type of motherboard do you need to RGH a Trinity? Yeah, I don't know. That question doesn't make a lot of sense. A Trinity is a type of console that you would use something to modify, like an Ace or an X360 Run, or the thing that I'm not sure a lot of people don't get when it comes to console modding like this, especially this late in the game for a mature system like the 360, is that there are just really a ton of options on how exactly you want to modify any given system. So Trinity is a type of Xbox 360 motherboard. Jasper is a type of motherboard. Falcon is a type of motherboard. And then the modifications that you can do to those are RGH1, RGH 1.2, RGH2, RGH with CR4 speed up or SRGH. So all sorts of stuff like that. What are you posting, Mod Shop? Oh, badass. Is that your, No way! You finished working on the USB add-on thing. Oh, that looks sick, bro. The little QSB anchors out, lets you add a 360 or a USB. So, immediate questions are, do you have to do any sort of NAND image modification to get it to read those? And what's the limit on the size that you can connect there? Also, I bet the dual NAND crowd would go crazy if you split that off and made it so you could attach two different USBs and then allowed for a switch to select between them. The dual NAND dudes are always worried about having a separate hard drive for their online profiles versus their offline modded profiles. That's badass, Mod Shop. That's really cool. You gonna start selling those? You need a reseller? Ha ha ha, I'm your guy. Alright, where do I usually get my console stock? That's Ninja Secrets, I can't tell you. Let's see, you don't know what to order, you already ordered soldering iron stuff, just need the thingy or whatever it is. Okay, so Marco, here's what you do. Go over to weekendmodder.com, not store.weekendmodder, just plain old weekendmodder.com. Click in the link that's on the front page that helps you identify your motherboard. And then once you've for certain identified your motherboard type, there are guides on the left-hand side that link to full video tutorials of how to modify each motherboard type with videos of each one being done. Select the one that works for your motherboard, watch the video, and then buy the stuff recommended in the video. That's about the fastest process I can walk you through here. So I didn't turn on my hot glue gun before. I'm still kind of waiting for it to heat up. So wasn't really a work in progress, just something I threw together. Yeah, I wish the stuff that I threw together, up to 2 terabytes, was made for a thumb drive. So, I mean, I can buy 128 gig thumb drives for like 30 bucks on the regular from Micro Center. So that's pretty cool. I really think you should productize that thing. Put a switch in, or a accessible external switch to switch back and forth between 2 different USB drives. All right, here we go. A little bit of, tiny bit of hot glue. Back off from the point to reinforce in case they accidentally get tugged on. You guys have heard the story a million times on why I do that. So, all right. So now we've got our C and D points. I just like to pull them from the top a little bit to get the excess wire to be up here. We've got our glitch chip installed. So we are actually ready to attempt to boot Zell and retrieve our CPU key. So we'll go ahead and put the console back in the case, get it side here, make sure that our SD tool isn't going to ground out and cause problems, make sure this wire isn't touching anything, just kind of bend it out of the way. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and plug in our ring of light board. I'm going to plug in our power, and I'm going to plug in HDMI and Ethernet. Oh. Let's see. Your connection was messed up. Did I see when you had a 250 gig hard drive that came with the console? Yes, I saw that you said that. Following videos is one thing, but doing a bunch of practice soldering. Yep. Okay. So we're totally connected, HDMI power, everything. So we're ready to go ahead and attempt to boot this thing. So we got a pulse, that's solid. And look at that, first glitch insta-boot. I'll go over to the Xbox screen here and we will have Zell. What's up, babe?
So,
I'm streaming, by the way.
I know. Can you pause it?
Not really. Okay, so we have IP address down here, 1.151. So we'll hit the lower left of my desktop. We'll enter our IP address, 151. Hit get CPU key. Sucks it in across the network here. I'm going to close that. And then actually I just make sure glitch 2 is still selected and hit create XE build image. I get this warning, SMC found, unless you put it there, delete it. Well, I didn't intentionally put it there, so I'll say yes. And I'm powering off the console while we're doing this. And I'll be back in just 1 second, guys. I'm going to mute my mic. All right, sorry about that, guys. Had to have a little brief side chat with the wife. So we've got the CPU key, and I see Nick's asking a question: how do you use Ethernet to transfer the CPU key? It's just a line from the console to the PC through the router. Is there any special network setup? So it is attached to my router. The in-device, the Xbox is capable of getting its own IP address, and then I just enter that IP address into JRunner, and across the network it sucks it in. It's not a direct line connection, anything special like that. Literally just plug the Ethernet into the Xbox when you're booting Zell. So we've booted Zell. We have our CPU key. We clicked create XE build image, so we have a UPD flash.bin image created, and now we want to write that to the console to have our ultimately modified Xbox here. So I'm going to disconnect the power connection. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the line to the crystal. So if you had desoldered this, you would just simply resolder it real fast. I just happen to have a quick disconnect. Came with this early prototype SD tool that ModShop hooked me up with. So I'm going to go ahead and plug back in one of my SD card reader writers. I'm going to plug back the power console, and I'm going to insert the SD tool into SD card reader writer, and we'll pop over into JRunner, and we'll say write NAND. We see the device listed here. We'll say write. We get a pop-up confirmation. We want to say yes, and we're now writing the UPD flash.bin to the console. We just got success. It happens really nice and fast. So I will disconnect power from the console, disconnect the reader, and disconnect the crystal line again. The crystal line can be disconnected anytime you're trying to boot the console using its own, NAND contents sort of thing. Could you use Kynar wire for the SD tool? Yes, you can absolutely use Kynar wire. It's what I usually use. Okay, so we've written the UPD flash. What I want to demonstrate here is that we'll go ahead and connect power back to the console. The SD tool is still connected, the crystal line is disconnected, so we should be able to just power the thing up and get a successful boot into normal dashboard. So we got 1 cycle, 2 cycles. I picked up these SD card reader writers at Micro Center. They're available on Micro Center's website. I believe they're Inland, I-N-L-A-N-D. ModShop, yeah, let's. I'll drop you an email to talk about those USB add-on things. I'd be curious to see what we would be able to do, maybe productize that thing a little bit. So I'll drop you an email on that one. I appreciate it, man. You're right, I didn't see your earlier chat. Also, the thing to note about this configuration is to not be overly concerned with boot times at this early of a stage. Specifically when using the Corona default timing file, oftentimes I've noticed that boot times improve once the console is reassembled. This chip was particularly designed for use in a Corona console, and I think they accounted for kind of the reassembly process, or whatever you want to call it. So when we're going on 10, 15 cycles now, this thing hasn't booted. You saw it insta-boot Zell. I bet I could pull the power and reapply, and we might get another insta-boot afterwards. So boot times, it's a little too early to fret about just yet in the install process. So given that we've gone through as many cycles as we did and we still don't have a boot, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect power and just yank it kind of here, and I'll reconnect and just give it another shot. So we'll power it back up and see if we can get a successful boot a little faster. So I do have my HDMI connected, so I know that's not my delay. Sora Poo Boy, I'm sorry, dude. You have to do some Google Translate on that one and try it in English, buddy. Ryan says, is it me or does the audio keep cutting out? Anybody else seeing audio cut out? Alright, cool. Successful boot. On the Xbox screen itself, we would expect to see, at this point, a standard stock looking dashboard. So this is the first run setup that appears when you get a brand new console. It's an effect of building the new NAND image. So once we get through that, we should see there we go, stock dashboard here. Alright, so now we've confirmed we've got a successful booting configuration. I'm ready to go ahead and power the console back off and start cleaning up, as well as boot time tuning. During the rest of this process, we'll boot the console several more times and make sure that we figure out... Oh, my webcam just froze. Are you guys seeing? Yeah, I'm seeing audio froze or video frozen. Hey, there we go. Deactivate, reactivate for the win. Okay, so now again I've powered off the console. I've confirmed that we can boot successfully into a XE build image. So what I'm going to do now is simple cleanup. So I'm going to remove the SD tool, because we shouldn't need to read and write the NAND any further. And then we'll clean up some of the flux residue, start reassembly on the console, and confirm the boot times are acceptable. So go ahead and pull all that out. Take off our quick disconnect and just store it all together. So I set this off. For cleanup, I use just regular cotton rounds and isopropyl alcohol. So we soak that up a little bit here and just give that a nice gentle rub. Clean up all the flux, and then do the same up here on the other header where we soldered the NAND points to as well. Clean up all that flux residue, and I kind of really get in there and make sure that I get it all out. Alright, so what temperature do I run at? 470. .470C is what I operate my iron at. Hakko FX88D. Alright, so we'll go back in with the hard drive tray here. Go ahead and reconnect its power and SATA connections. Drop in the little bezel that supports the disk drive at the front. Drop in the fan cowl, and this was the thing that threw me off. I straightened this a little bit more than it was. I don't know if your console's been dropped at some point in the past, or if they got the shit beat out of it in shipping. The external plastic casing wasn't damaged. This thing is bent up, man. That really surprised me. This stuff is thin, but it's strong, so that's pretty crazy. Look. Kim wipes, they're magical. Alright, cool, I'll check that out. I'm going to go ahead and throw the DVD drive back in as well. As I was saying about worrying about boot times, reassembly of the console, at least partial, in my opinion, has often shown to actually improve boot times. Again, these chips were designed for Corona, so I can't help but wonder if they didn't compensate for the fact that they knew how and where it would be installed. So when we're booting it, kind of partially installed without being reassembled, it's not really in the final state that it was meant to be used in. That's kind of a guess on my behalf, but I suppose we'll see if that proves out based on how quickly this console boots in its now kind of partially reassembled state. So I'm using my my remote here, and we'll just go ahead and power it on. And I don't know if the mic picks up on them, but I can hear the fan noise caused by the crystal. So there's cycle 2, and we can count those and know how many glitch cycles that it goes. So there's cycle 3. Four. 5. 6. Well, that's not great. 7. 'I think that's 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. This is awful. Legend, how much for black PCB NAND reader? I'm assuming you must be talking about my my kind of custom, or my SD tool thing here. I think this is blue. I'm technically a little bit colorblind here, but I think that's blue. Also, I'm not gonna sell it, so the only ones for sale are the red PCB SD tools. So yeah, and they're only $10. So man, this is taking forever. This is not good. This is not an acceptable amount of boot time. So we definitely would not let the console go out the door like this. The Ace V3 has a spot on it intentionally made for capacitor to be added. So you can see, if I would angle it right, you can see these two little points here that are specifically there for kind of tuning sort of thing here. So is it dark purple? Is that the color? You want a black PCB one. Well, talk to Mod Shop then, because he's the only guy that I know that could have one custom made for you, and I'm sure that he'll have an equally high price, because my advice would be to buy a red one and paint it if you care about it being black so much. It really makes no difference functionally. So anyway, what I'm going to go ahead and do is grab one of my little baggie of capacitors here. Now I think these are the 271s that I bought for changing X360 runs. Here we go. Let's see if we can find a reasonable little capacitor here to try doing some tuning with. 47. Sorry, I know this part is thrilling, but it is the basic. This is the glory of. Yeah, not interested in getting a custom black line manufacturer. That's kind of what I expected there, buddy. Sorry. This is the glory of RGH installing by accepting other people's consoles and kind of promising an end result. You have to know how to perform some boot tuning and stuff. We've seen that this console is capable and will boot. And I suppose there are less experienced installers and people out there that might just say, well, good enough. It's done technically, but the actual performance of the boot timing is important, right? I mean, that directly affects how well you're going to be able to use it day to day. If you have to wait 5 minutes for it to boot up every time, that's going to be mega annoying. So, all right, and we'll bend that over flat here a little bit. Put the DVD back and give this bad boy another test. See if adding that capacitor makes any significant impact in the post. It definitely has post, because we wouldn't have been able to boot Zell or boot the XE build image the first time without that. Worst case scenario, if we felt like the post was part of the problem, we could throw a postfix adapter on here. How much for send IB receive? Santana, I got no clue what you're asking there, man. Sorry. Don't talk to Mod Shop. Ha ha ha. I missed that part of it. I threw you under the bus by saying that it was your problem to tell him that he can't have a black one. Oh, I wasn't trying to be mean or anything. All right, so that one booted in like 5 cycles or something. That was significantly better than going way longer, but still not great, man, in my opinion. That really wasn't a very super amazing boot time or anything. While I got it up and running, I'm going to go ahead and slap my USB that has the Avatar update in it and take advantage of the fact that it's running right now and let it perform that Avatar update. So this would be a normal process that I would follow during my RGH stuff. So there, it just read in the USB. Now it's telling me my update's required, so I'll say yes. Excuse me. It'll go through and extracting, and the only reason this is working right now is because this console, again, has the 4 gig on board. So it's installing the Avatar update to that. We will reinstall the user's hard drive. And how much for a send-in? Oh, that's what you're asking, Santana. The send-in is $75, basically. Legend, you want 10 Viper dual NANDs, but I only have a couple. Well, let me see. Let me walk over to my bag. This is the entire contents of my my Viper dual NAND stock. I bought Mod Shop out again long ago, and after the first batch, and this is all that I have left. So I have a total of 2, 4, 5 of them. That is it. These are all of the Viper dual NANDs that I have left. I probably should have already approached Mod Shop about making some more, but since he's here, What do you say, buddy? You gonna make some more? We got some demand, obviously. So that's why you only see one 2-pack and then a couple of singles on the website. I wanted to make them available to somebody who wanted a 2-pack and potentially to somebody who wanted just a single one. So we got another boot, another almost reasonable time, but still not great in my opinion. I think that one went 5 or 6 cycles again. So the capacitor that I put on was 10, and I think it's measured in picofarads, but it just says 10 on it. So to be honest, I'm not entirely certain of the unit of measure. ModShop, do you know the unit of measure that is normally on these little capacitors like this? Is it picofarads or nanofarads or something like that? It's a unit measure of energy storage. Okay, so I'm going to bump this up from a 10. I'm going to try to find maybe a 20. I have them in increments increasing by about 10 all the way up through like 70 and 80. So that one's a 10. I'm going to hang on to it, but I'm going to see if we can't identify or find like a, here we go, 22. That was the luck of the draw. We've got some good news for me. Get with you after the stream. Perfect. Microfarads stated as UF. That makes sense too. I believe you on that one. On the measurement used for these capacitors. Oh. There we go. Alright, so I just increased from a 10 to a 22 capacitor here. And go ahead and reconnect the DVD drive and see if that positively or negatively is impacting our boot times. Alright, so I'm going to take the USB out. No reason to keep that on anymore. We reconnected power and HDMI. And let's take a look. Now I'm not even hearing the high-pitched tell of the attempted boot cycles. So that doesn't make me happy. I'll power it back off here. Make sure I didn't like disconnect anything. This is all still there. Let's see. Try it again. Alright, well I suppose we've answered the question of whether it positively or negatively impact boot times by installing that 22. We're not even getting attempted cycles. So that's not one we're going to leave in there. Next batch of Vipers will be black. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to take this 22 off and go back to our 10. Let's see. How can I get this so that you guys can still see it, but I can go. How about I use a postfix adapter to see if it boots faster? I could. That is a potential option. That could be done. I'm not sure that I'm ready to try that yet. Alright, so we'll bring that down. We're back to our 10 microfarad capacitor. And Nations admin, what was that? Ask, is there really any benefit to a dual boot, dual NAND? Yeah, certainly. In one physical console package, you can essentially identify yourself with different key vaults, which allows you to have your original unmodified retail NAND booting, and then the RGH modified XE build image NAND, and boot them separately. Whether or not there's actually value in having that combined into a single console versus two separate consoles is pretty much a personal choice. My personal choice is that I would rather have physically separate retail and modded consoles. Metal Mods, what postfix do you recommend? The postfix V1 and V2 functionally are identical. The V2 only offers various NAND points that offer different wire lengths. It really doesn't make a difference. So V1 or V2, the postfix adapter is a postfix adapter. So we're at, what, about a 30-second boot time average with that 10 capacitor in here consistently. That's not terribly inconsistent here. Yeah, see, ModShop has a good point. If space is a concern, you'd rather have one console versus two. That's a super valid point in the debate on dual NAND stuff. So we just successfully booted that one, went to the Xbox screen. I'm gonna actually do math here. I'm gonna pull out my sticky note and write some stuff down. And we're gonna do a 3-cycle boot test. So, and we're gonna time it. This is what I do when I can't really decide whether or not I should continue doing more or if what I've done is sufficient. So we'll get a stopwatch timer here going. And I'm going to perform 3 boots and average the time. And if we're sub 30 seconds, we'll go ahead and call it good. If we're over 30 seconds, then I'll put some additional effort into boot timing here. So, that said, start. Boot number 1. Second cycle. Third cycle. Okay, third cycle, or first cycle was at about 19 seconds to a successful boot. So we'll go ahead and power that bad boy off. So that's not too bad. 19 seconds is pretty reasonable there. Let's do a second boot. Oh, start. Well, I was at, yeah, that's fine. I can do math. Second cycle. Ooh, second cycle was at 12 seconds. Yeah, this is looking better than I thought. Your customer's Corona 4 gig instaboots just by you switching the CPU RST. We could, I mean, shoot, we're just doing a live stream. We can give it a shot. 12 seconds is not too shabby, though, in my way of thinking. All right, and third boot here. Let's go. First cycle. Second cycle. Third cycle. Third cycle, another 19 second. So it's booting within the, so this was 3, 2, 3 on glitch cycle counts. That seems really consistent and highly regular to me. To be honest, I'd rather just move on. Sub 30 seconds like that, if you can't wait 20 seconds for the console to start, I mean, come on. That seems a little ridiculous to me. So with a, what would the 3 of those average be? Like 16-second boot average? That's less than half of a 30-second. So very solid. There's no reason to complain about that at all. All right, since some people's expressed interest, I'm going to go ahead and perform the LED change out here on camera as well. So we removed the little housing. We've got our ring of light board, and first step is to remove existing LEDs from the board. So we're going to grab my soldering iron, and this kind of component removal method is generally kind of referred to as floating off the components. You essentially drown them in a solder bath in order to pull them out. This particular customer requested blue LEDs, so blue it will be, actually. Come on now. I want to get some better focus on this. Let's go. Focus, camera, focus. I think I have a way that I can tell it to focus. There we go. I think it did. There! Ha ha! Don't move. That would make them all green. Yeah, ModShop's got a really good point that I didn't think about. When you make the center button in a Slim console white, that kind of comes through unfiltered and looks white. But this ring around the outside edge actually sits behind a plastic lens in the console, and they tend to look green as they pass through that plastic filter, even though they're white. So it basically looks like a really bright white center and then like light green outside if you do white on Slims. So, removing these LEDs, I'm essentially holding my iron broadside sideways. I'm putting it up next to the item, and then I'm going to just add a whole bunch of solder here, kind of on either end. And as I rotate it back and forth, the item just kind of wipes off. I'm trying, or definitely don't want to damage the pads, because that's what we're going to solder the replacement LEDs back to. So I use this old tape ring from an old roll of Kapton tape to hold the PCB up off of the desk and hold it flat, because it has a connector on the back side. It won't lay flat. And it also serves as handy ability to just kind of rotate it in 360 degrees as I'm going through the removal process. Yeah, the purple LEDs are generally a problem. My opinion is, if you want kind of a purpley experience but want some brightness, order LEDs that are called pink, and oftentimes they have kind of a purple hue to them, but they're much brighter. The true purple LEDs are oftentimes very dim. My own purple LEDs are as well, so you're not unique or alone in that one. All right, so once we get all the outside ring apart, this center LED will also get replaced with a set of LEDs, the left for the main one, the right for the air. And we just do that one like that by dancing it off. And that one I don't wipe into my copper mesh because it clogs it up way faster. I just kind of shake it off of my iron into the trash can. Alright, so now we've got blank pads on all these. Here, ModShop, maybe you like my toy over here. My SMD roll thing that I 3D printed. Did you ever 3D print one of these? I know we had talked about it at one point. So I've got various LED colors and SMD components here, but this big long roll is my blue ones. So we will pull these back and get 9 blue LEDs out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. All right. And we'll come over here, and I have red on here as well. And I do the error LED in a different color on purpose. So we'll get one red one out. And so that I don't, I'm going to install that red LED first. So the red LED, haven't printed one yet. Oh, you haven't printed it yet? Nice. How much for one? Are you talking about the SMD dispenser roll thing? I hadn't considered selling those. The files are available on Thingiverse. You just print it. So $200 would get you a 3D printer that would be capable of printing it, and you could make as many of them as you want. Everybody's being cool now, so let me turn off slow chat so you guys don't have to deal with that. How do I do that? Where's my settings? Settings, enable slow mode, done. Okay, cool. Is it a good business to get into? I think that it is something that someone with a medium amount of skills and some patience can definitely get into. But I also think that the headaches can sometimes outweigh the benefits. So, trouble customers who feel like they're entitled to your helping them learn how to do mod menus and stuff, or customers that just bought into RGH without fully understanding what was going on. Those are oftentimes the biggest headaches that you run into. It also may be difficult for somebody just coming into this business to actually get enough reputation to be trustable. I think you could probably hang out in the 7 Cents forums and kind of prove your knowledge and do stuff that way. A lot of my traffic comes from YouTube videos, but I've got dozens and dozens of tutorial videos demonstrating me doing this. So it kind of serves as easy proof for me when somebody's like, oh, how can I trust you? How do I know that you're not going to, botch up my console? Generally, I can tell them, well, there's a few 100,000 views on my YouTube tutorial videos with mostly positive feedback. So, I don't know, take that for what you will. It could be difficult to break into. The 360's got a short lifespan. This process is exactly the same on every Slim, Corona, and Trinity right now. The only difference would be on the Slim E series. The PCB is significantly different for the RF board. It's broken into different components. So that one is different, but for for any Slim S series, so any Corona, any Trinity, that's not in the E series case, the LEDs would be done just like this. Alright, the last two. And these LEDs, I haven't spoken about it, I've just been doing them because I was talking about other stuff, but they do have polarity. So there is a positive side and a negative side. There are reference images available online if you just Google Slim RF board LED polarity. You can find a diagram that will highlight the polarity of the different points, as well as the back of the LEDs contain a little marking that tells you which side is the anode and which side is the cathode, which are fancy ways of saying positive and negative sides. So you'll want to be aware of that and follow those guides when doing your own LEDs. Way too many little kids selling RGHs with crap installs. Definitely. Is that the D18 tip? I don't know. I picked a tip out of a multi-pack that I've had, and I've been using the same tip for a bunch of years. So, you said kid RGH with crap installs. Are you talking boot times? I think he's probably talking quality of the install, like not having flux cleaned up afterwards, points half burnt to death, half-ass repair jobs, a lot of the sort of stuff that we see posted around where people have taken on customers and tried to start a business before they're really competent enough to offer a service. So, yeah. Is the $18 iron tips interchangeable with your RGH? That doesn't make sense. Clarify. Alright, so we've gone ahead and changed out the LEDs. I've got power, I've got HDMI, so I'm going to go ahead and boot it just to verify all of our LEDs are working. And we'll get another rough, kind of boot time estimate out of that. So second cycle. Third cycle. Fourth cycle. Fifth cycle. Oh, this boot's taking a little while. Well, rather than wait on it, what I can do is just hit the sync button here, which gives us confirmation that none of the LEDs are missing here. So everything is definitely working out. The blue LED is the only one lit up. The right side LED we did do, but that is the red LED, which should only light up if/when this console was to ever ever have a red dot or something like that. I'm counting the cycles based on the sound that the glitch pulse makes in some of these Corona consoles. And actually, it's kind of alarming to me because it's stopped cycling now. So failed to boot and is no longer making that pulsing sound. It's probably difficult for anybody watching the stream to hear, but you can actually hear the high-pitched sound. It comes out of the fan that's made specifically by these Coronas using the default ACE-V3 timing file. It's kind of a side effect of those. It's totally normal, and it stops once the console has booted up. So we'll boot it. So every time that green light flashes, we also hear a high-pitched sound out of the fan. And there we go. Look at that. First glitch insta-boot right there. So even though the fact the previous boot failed on that one, to be honest, that's not entirely irregular. It is called reset glitch for a reason, right? It's not a absolutely reliable thing, and the fact that we can turn it off, turn it back on, and get an insta boot still makes me feel nice and good. So it's not a beep like a forklift. It's much more high pitched in sound. It's like a ringing almost. So all right, so we'll go ahead and power this off, and I guess let's walk through some software stuff here too, because this is a bit of follow-up that a lot of people ask me for. Okay, I followed your tutorial, I've got the console RGH, now what do I do? So the next steps really are loading your base set of tools like XEX menu, freestyle dashboard, dash launch. So here's where it was bent in the housing as well. So I wonder if it was damaged in shipping on that. This is all bent up as well. You wish I was in the UK so you could send the Xbox 360. There are good people in the UK, I think. I don't really keep track of other modders and stuff. I've thought about trying to run like a recommendation page or something in the past. I've just never done it. Where to donate? You could use Super Chat through YouTube if you really want to, but I'm not worried about donations, guys. If you subscribe, that's pretty cool. But I'm already getting paid by the customer to do the RGH service. I do the videos because I enjoy doing the videos, and I sell supplies. So there's the real answer: is if you're looking to support me rather than make any sort of donation, go over to store.weekendmodder.com and buy something. Buy a glitch chip from me or something. I know I'm not the cheapest guy on the block, but I'm reliable. I'm in the U.S. and you get it fast, so there's that. All right. Speed mods, that's cool. Actually, I've heard of Monoxide. I haven't really had any personal dealings with him, but he's been around a good long while. He was on TTG back in the day when I was advertising on TTG, so I'm totally fine with that recommendation. You're not you're not stealing the show by pointing out a seller who's willing to do something that I'm not, which is send in services for people in the UK. So very fair. No foul there on that one, Speed Mods. Good call. Thank you, man. I sent you an X-clamp replacement. I sent you an X-clamp replacement? I don't... I've been doing this for a long time, man. I think I have vague memories of sending someone an X-clamp at one point, but who knows. Alright. Put our Wi-Fi module back in. Wi-Fi. If you were to take an already used ACE-V3 out of a Trinity and put it in another Trinity, would it work? Probably. There's nothing that ties the glitch chip to the specific console that it was in. So unless something is wrong with the glitch chip, if it was functional in one console, you should generally be able to assume that it would be functional in a different console. Damn, dropped my tip. Alright. Couple more screws. This console was really filthy, by the way. Sorry, dude, I don't mean to call you out on it or anything, but I had to take it upstairs and blow it out with an air compressor before I could show it on screen or even really work on it without getting super dirty. Yeah, look what's in the faceplate. This is like super gross. That was all over the inside of the console. Alright, so faceplate reinstall. I'm going to be gentle with our ribbon cable here. Drop this back in. It's not seated properly. What's going on here? Something's not where it's supposed to be. It's not lining up here. We got issues. Ladies and gentlemen, we have issues. Oh. Alright. Am I buds with Davis? No, not really. Okay, so it looks like, yeah, that's the problem. The screw didn't actually go down in there. It's just resting on top of. Yeah, that's not right either. One screw does not a difference make, so just do it without it. Pop open our faceplate ribbon. There's what we like to see. We got issues. I should do wow. I should do a video on flashing a disk drive. That is a complicated topic because there are like 5 or 6 different disk drive issues, and there are 5 or 6 different disk drive versions in FATs. There are another couple in SLIMs. There are variations of which ones can be unlocked and rewritten, which ones have to be replaced with different PCBs. The Jungle Flasher tutorial already very well covers that process, in my opinion. I think anybody who really wants that information, it's already out there and very well covered. So I don't really feel like I could add a whole lot of additional value to creating more content there. So I think definitely that this thing was damaged at one point, dropped on the side or whatever. All this is kind of bulging and weird, and that's under the same side where the metal was damaged. So there you go. All right, so we'll go ahead and boot our console up and load up our dashboard stuff here. So So there's our console booting. That was a first pulse insta boot glitch as well, so instant boot. That was nice. Pop over to the Xbox screen and you'll see that we're getting a standard stock dashboard for right now. We'll go ahead and plug in my USB again, which I know you guys can't see right now. But I'm going to pick my TWM profile when it shows up. Come on. Taking its sweet time. Here we go. TWM. No, I don't want to connect and apply any updates. We'll right bumper all the way over to settings, go down to the storage menu, and you can see my memory unit, my USB, go into the demos where XTX menu lives, and copy that into the hard drive. So now he'll have a copy of XTX menu on his hard drive. Ooh. So, just to summarize for anybody that was watching here, the modification that we completed used an SD tool, an ACE V3, and some basic soldering supplies. SD tool runs $9.99 on the website, store.weekendmodder.com. ACE V3 right now I think is $4.99. So with shipping and everything, I had this little come by an RGH for me, and I asked, and his mom knew if he knew how to use it. 1 hour she texted me. I was at Xbox Live blocked. She was mad. Yeah, I've had very similar experiences, Legend H2O. Ryan Mackey, I appreciate you trying to be defensible, but he's not really super advertising. He's telling a story, so I get that. I'm not trying to be butthurt about that. I've had people very much buy RGHs and then not realize they need stealth service and then totally freak out and want me to either refund their money or like return their console to stock when they've already been online with the RGH, and now the KV's banned, so now the console's permanent banned, and it's definitely a good idea for people to have a good idea of. It's a good idea for people to have a good idea. It's important that people understand what they're getting into with an RGH, that they can't go online normally, that sort of stuff. So what I've just done was I copied and pasted the stuff with Davis. That's what you're saying. Yeah, I don't really want to talk about that. So that one, I'll agree with you. Let's not talk about that crap, because that's all that's there is crap. So I copied and pasted Dash Launch, Aurora, and Freestyle onto the hard drive. Then I've launched Dash Launch. I'm going down to the default boot. I'm going to tell it to boot up Freestyle dashboard here. And actually, audio needs to be fixed, please. Let me take a look. Maybe somebody's streaming off my Plex server. Maybe that's messing with stuff, because I haven't changed anything since we started. No, nobody's doing Plex. Server's not downloading anything. Audio's going to have to fix itself. Sorry, guys. I haven't changed anything and confirmed nothing running on my server. So if the audio is bad, it'll have to recover on its own. Sorry. Yeah, Ace V3 is a good one, definitely. So we'll go down to Freestyle, we'll choose the default.xdx, and then we'll save that launch.ini. And now, when we boot up the console, it will actually start directly into Freestyle Dash. And I just noticed a note on this customer send-in. They actually said if Aurora Dash isn't needed, don't install it. Which, whatever, that's fine. Customer gets what they want. I did copy Aurora Dash over there, but I can really easily just delete it. So we'll go into the hard drive, we'll say delete. Or you want to delete Aurora? Yes. So now I just deleted the copy of Aurora. Oh, it sounds like a robot. Here, give me a second. I'll deactivate and reactivate my audio. Let me know if that helped with the audio quality. Tomato ketchup. Weekend Modder. Falcon Jasper, RGH 1.2. Look at this. It's almost like if you Google it, at tomato ketchup. There you go, buddy. No, it hasn't helped. Well, I guess with that and our insane audio quality issues, we've seen the console. We'll boot it one final time here so you guys can see it boot up into its freestyle dashboard now that we've preloaded that. And we'll probably just call it a stream with that. We're going on an hour and a half anyway. So there's 1 cycle, 2 cycles. Oh, fixed. Cool. You guys just don't want me to end the stream. So I think we're on like 5 cycles. That's not great. Still going though. It only happens when I show you the console dashboard. Oh, okay. Nations, I love you too. Man, I meant to show a final boot here, and now it's like 10. Happens even on the proof videos. Well, I use the same equipment, so that makes sense. I'll have to look into that. Is it still happening now? I'm showing you guys the console dashboard, or actually I'm showing you the last thing that it showed, and I'm speaking, but I turned off the audio, and now it's booted here. Man, that boot was long. That was like a full solid minute boot. That sucked. I think I'll power it off and do another one as soon as this one's done, just to true. With the JRP, you didn't get direct wires, only QSBs. Cut the end off of your QSBs and use them as wires. That's fine. Cool. All right. All right, so we booted directly into freestyle here. I'm going to power this thing off and do another boot. Because it insta-booted last time, and then it just took a solid minute. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy. All right, so we're off. Let's do it again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Both tomato ketchup. You're going to have to trim both of them off. Man, this sucks. Boot time's awful now that it's all reassembled and everything reinstalled. We got an insta-boot out of it once, and now it's taken forever. So that was another about, I don't know, minute or something. I didn't exactly track it. I'm going to boot this thing a few more times, see if I can take an average. I might have to crack it back open and do some more tuning on it. Truce TV, go over to weekendmodder.com. You need to just actually do some research. We can't spoon feed you, bro. What's the cheapest method to RGH a Slim? Well, you got to identify the console first. Pop over to weekendmodder.com and then take a look at, are all points solid? Yes, all points are solid, buddy. Definitely. So, do you connect both plugs into the JRP? Dude, go. All right. I'm going to try to put this the best way I know how, is that you need to take a breath and a step back and really evaluate what you're doing. For tomato ketchup, the videos that you've been linked to demonstrate exactly the process to follow, but using a Nandex. You have a JRP V2, so you're just going to need to substitute the same actions using the JRP. They're interchangeable functionally. If Truce TV, you want to mod the console, you got to do a little bit of base work in order to, kind of get rolling here. So you got to identify your console type, and then which particular variant can determine the equipment that you need, and that sort of stuff. So a good informational resource place is just plain old weekendmodder.com, and that should hopefully help you out there. So I'm going to take my phone call. I wish you guys the best. Thank you very much for hanging out with me, and have a great day.